Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Tuesday, the 9th of July, 2024. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 closed up nearly 1% to 7,830 points, more than reversing yesterday's tumble. The telco index was best on the day, thanks to the 2.2% jump in Telstra's share price following an announcement about charging more for phone plans. The financials also did well, with Westpac and ANZ both up more than 2%, while Commonwealth Bank and National Australia Bank both rose around 1.5%. Other strong large cap performers included WiseTech Global, Aristocrat Leisure, REA Group, Santos and CSL. The underperformers included Macquarie Group, Goodman and Woodside Energy. Best on the day was Insignia, the wealth manager, formerly known as IOOF. It jumped 14% after a media report suggested investment bank Citi had been called in to look at merger activity, whatever that means. Story number 2, on Wall Street overnight, the broad-based S&P 500 set its 35th record close, while the tech-based Nasdaq Composite was also higher. Apple jumped 0.7% to lift its market cap to $3.49 trillion, while Microsoft slipped 0.3%, pushing it to the number 2 slot, worth $3.47 trillion. Nvidia rallied almost 2%. It's worth about $3.15 trillion. In commodity markets, Brent oil is down below $86 a barrel, while gold continues its slow climb. It's fetching $23.60 an ounce. The Aussie dollar has held onto the ground it made in the last couple of sessions. It's trading around 67.5 US cents. All eyes are now on US Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who is due to front Congress tonight. Story number 3, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the 103 members of his caucus are all on exactly the same page about issues on the war in Gaza. The conflict in the Middle East has been a treacherous issue to navigate for the Labor Party, as demonstrated by Senator Fatima Payman leaving the party last week to sit as an independent. Mr Albanese said the caucus allows a range of debates on all sorts of issues and common positions are worked through. He went on to say that the Labor Party's position of support for the State of Israel and support for a 2-state solution with Palestinians being able to realise their legitimate aspirations for their own state, side by side with Israel, has been part of Labor's platform for a long period. The Prime Minister was speaking after appointing Gillian Siegel as the government's new special envoy to combat anti-Semitism. He also plans to name a new special envoy to combat Islamophobia in the coming days. Story number 4, exchange-traded funds, or ETFs, are attracting a big chunk of investor flows, with the market now worth more than $200 billion. Australian ETF assets under management jumped 15% over the past 6 months, following solid gains on global equity markets and strong investor inflows. The $200 billion total compares with $178 billion at the start of the year, according to Vanguard. Australian ETF assets rose by around $25 billion from the start of January to the end of June, and about 40% of that reflects new capital, while the rest reflects market returns. About half of the inflows went into ASX-listed international equity ETFs. Another key theme of the first half of 2024 was the surge in listings of active ETFs and managed fund products. Out of 41 new ASX ETF listings in total, 28 of them were actively managed funds. And story number 5, Sydney talkback king Ray Hadley has won his 158th consecutive radio ratings poll 20 years after he won his first victory. Hadley hosts the morning program on 9-owned 2GB, and his unbeaten stretch over 2 decades is unprecedented for a key time slot on Sydney radio. Hadley lifted his audience share by 1.1 percentage points in the latest survey, taking his audience share to 16.4%. Hadley's 2GB stablemate Ben Fordham, who hosts the breakfast program, also maintained his number 1 position in his time slot with a 17% audience share, well ahead of rivals Kiss FM's Kyle Sandilands and Jackie O. Now, that FM duo slipped 0.6 percentage points in the survey in Sydney, down to 14.1% market share. But the survey also marks the second partial ratings period of the controversial duo's entry into the Melbourne market. So far, they've failed to make much of an impact, recording a 5.9% audience share. 3AW's breakfast program in Melbourne, hosted by Ross Stevenson and Russell Hawcroft, remains well ahead in the time slot, with an 18.8% share. That's it for the afternoon report for Tuesday, the 9th of July, 2024. Michael Thompson and I will be back tomorrow morning with a Wednesday edition of Fear and Greed Business News. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.